Okay. It's okay. Um, I turn the music off for a bit. I'm just gonna briefly explain this game. Went my way quite quickly. Um, some games end quick. That's all. I played well though. Knight f3 is the fourth most popular first move by white, and many consider it to be the fourth most popular serious tries by white for a win. I don't agree with that necessarily. I've heard this, but I'm not sure I agree with it. Pawn to g3 is so much similar to knight to f3 in many cases that I wouldn't discount pawn to g3. Um, Knight to c. I mean, well, the serious tries are e4, d4, and c4 for sure. Those are definitely the top three. And by way of database, usually knight f3. But if we're gonna include knight f3, then I think we should consider pawn to g3, either with that or as a fifth. I don't know. Please, please don't hold me to this. I don't. Just sharing my thoughts. And knight to c3 is logical as well, so not exactly sure where that fits in. Anyway, knight to f3 is one of the serious tries for white. One of the knight to c3 is one of the serious tries by white to play for a win. You know, part of the idea of knight to c3 is to cut out e5 as a response and own some of the center just by having developed a knight. And so I have kind of dodging that with the move d5, and a lot of the game will shape around moves subsequent to knight f3 too. There's like one prescribed path, of course not. We know that. And knight c4. And I'll just grab more of the center out of the book, out of the sort of out of standard book. I mean, this position has been played, but it's not common. And after d4, I'm just going to capture on d4 with my pawn. My point is, I now have the possibility of two central pawns, whereas my opponent, white, has the possibility of one central pawn. Um, so I might have some kind of advantage occupying the center. Knight c6 is fine here. The trade if these knights were to trade, it's still a fine and playable position for black. Bishop to e3, and we're going to allow my opponent to play mistakes if I can. If I can, I'm going to allow my opponent to play mistakes. With pawn to e5, the knight takes c6 is a bit of an inaccuracy, and we're looming on the edge here of a bad mistake, and here it comes. With g3, I win either the knight or the bishop in exchange for this pawn and some ancillary benefits of having my opponent double pawns on the e file or the c file. So pawn to d4 is a winning move. I decided, well, I could have captured back with my pawn. I decided to offer this trade of queens. White will not want that. So a move like queen c1 makes a lot of sense, and that's how my opponent moved. And then we're just gonna develop while also pinning this knight. There's a threat to win at least an extra pawn on White's queen side. That's exactly what happened. Bishop takes c3 with check, the recapture, capture on c3 with the queen and check. King now cannot castle. I'll hold on to this pawn at c6, but also doing so as to save the rook and the king from being checked. Yes, the queen covers it, but she is a flighty queen, as many as queens are off to be. She's not on the c file for good, or at least not necessarily. She might soon be here or wherever. So I have put a more long-lasting control over c6 while also technically developing my bishop to d7. Now it's not the most adventurous development of a piece. Knight to e7. Rook b3. I want to avoid anything crazy, so kingside castles is good here. There's a little bit of worry with perhaps white playing rook to b7, in which case we will improve our weakest piece, or our least active piece, the rook on f8. Rook f8 to d8, and even probably rook a8 to d8. Either one could do. I would prefer to move the rook from the f file. And there's nothing going for black on b8 because white has the file strongly so. Bishop to f3 allows the check on h3. The c6 pawn is protected, and white has to deal with this check in one of, I count, 3 ways. He finds the best way, but with queen to d5 making use of, I don't know if you call it, is not really I guess it's a kind of a pin, but this can't happen because that would bring white's king into check. This is kind of a rare tactic because if captures on h3, then black captures the rook on h1 and has garnered even more material, or is that even, that's even checkmate beyond rooks or bishops, right? Then that's straight up checkmate, my friends. And so rook to g1 and queen d1 is checkmate. Interesting game. This is a game I would say falls into the category an early piece win. Black wins a piece early here on black's 7th move. This is winning a piece, and sometimes to play consistently after that, the only good idea for white is to kind of play like aggressively. Like, you don't want to get ground down to an end game where you're down a piece. So I think maybe my opponent played within that mindset. Like aggressive, this move, bishop g2 even can be considered aggressive, occupying this long diagonal. But there's too much loss too early. It was just a quick game. Sometimes it happens. That's also that's another way to look at it. All right. I'm glad to have played this game and played this game well, and I think that's all I have for now. I have played. All right. Yeah. Alright, yeah, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.